Senator Dunham.
Well, thank you very much, Mr Acting Deputy President. It's my pleasure tonight to rise to speak about a very dedicated and enthusiastic group of locals who are dedicated to seeing the beautiful community of Waratah and surrounds preserved and put on the map as a tourism attraction. Waratah is a beautiful community in northwest Tasmania, which I spent a lot of time in as a child, and I'm pleased to be talking about it tonight. The group I'm referring to is to be commended for their efforts to promote this community, to secure its future through tourism and also through historical preservation. For those of you not familiar with this community, Waratah, which is south of Burnie and towards the west coast of Tasmania, is a spectacular former mining boom town. It was home to the great Mount Bischoff tin mine, which in its heyday was one of the world's richest tin mines. It was discovered in 1871 by a fellow by the name of James Philosopher Smith, and it contributed not only to the Tasmanian economy but also to the national economy, along with mines like the Mount Lyell copper mine in Queenstown and the Dundas silver mine in Zeehan. Cities like Melbourne were beneficiaries of places like Waratah, Queenstown and Zeehan. Many of the buildings we see today were funded off the back of some of these very successful Tasmanian mines, which I think is an important thing to put on record for my West Australian and Victorian colleagues. In terms of some of the other towns that this group are focusing on as well in this region, I refer to places like Magnet. A beautiful valley known as the Magnet Valley was the site of a mining town which was home to a couple of thousand people, again in its heyday, boasting a great number of hotels, a hospital, 3 schools. Today there's nothing more there. There's the foundations of the Catholic Church, but beyond that there's not a great deal more to show that there was ever a bustling mine and community to support it. It too generated a significant amount of wealth for the state as a silver-lead mine. It was also the birthplace of a Tasmanian Labor luminary and former Premier, and that was the late Eric Rees. Other spectacular locations in the region include the Luina Township and Cleveland Mine, and also the Godkin Mines, to name but a few. And all of these locations are being reclaimed by the dense and beautiful rainforest. Very slowly but surely, all of these towns are disappearing off the map. It's important to note, as I've already said, that these towns contributed significantly not only to the state's economy, to the nation's economy as well. And I think it's important that, as Tasmanians, we recognise the history that these communities have with regard to that economic contribution. To the group I mentioned at the beginning of my adjournment speech tonight, this group of dedicated locals who are keen to see that we not only preserve what these communities mean to the state of Tasmania and to recognise the history of these communities, but also to put them on the map and promote them as a tourism attraction. The individuals in this group, Winston Nichols, Anne Dunham, Kim Cassili, Shane Pinner, Paul Ledger and Chris Hawkins, to name but a few, have been passionate advocates for these towns, this region, and have done a great job promoting what's special about this part of the world and chronicling the history of this community, something that I fear was slipping away over time. So I'm very grateful to them. The projects that they've been proposing to enhance this part of Tasmania include the Men of Rock Museum and Interpretation Centre, which will be a great visitor attraction in the town of Waratah, chronicling the history of the area and highlighting its contribution to the economy and the history of our state. The interpretive signage for a number of the aforementioned disappearing towns in our wilderness to show the significant contribution to the economy these towns have made, but also to demonstrate how hard life was in these rugged and inhospitable parts of the country. The Pebble Pathway, which runs from Waratah to Tema on the very wild west coast of Tasmania, which was once walked by the Tasmanian Aborigines, and then after that miners and prospectors of the region, which is a 100-kilometre walk, which this group is hoping to open up as another walking trail to add to the offering we have in this state, along with the Overland Track and the Three Capes Trail. I commend this group for their enthusiasm, and I encourage any senators who aren't familiar with this region to come on down and I'll give you a guided tour of the area myself. And I commend the group and look forward to seeing these projects come to fruition.